Revealed, how a single dad janitor's amazing discovery of a hidden pain transformed a woman's life. Tom, a janitor in the bustling heart of the city, knew he was a ghost in his own world. Every day, he pushed his cleaning cart through the echoing hallways of the school, unnoticed by teachers and students alike. As a single dad, he barely made enough to scrape by, but every battered corner of his life was polished with love for his 8-year-old daughter, Lily. His heart thumped heavily with the weight of bills and a future that always felt just out of reach. Yet, he soldiered on, dreaming of a better life for Lily. One late evening, after the final bell had rung, Tom found a crumpled note tucked beneath an old desk, hidden like a secret. The words smudged with what could only be tears caught his breath. "I'm overwhelmed, trapped in my own mind." It read, penned in shaky handwriting. It was from Sarah, a young teacher known for her bright smile. Yet, here lay her hidden pain, laid bare and raw. Suddenly, Tom wasn't just a custodian, he was the keeper of a heavy truth. Tom felt his chest tighten. He recognized the pain, it mirrored his own struggles. Behind the classroom's sunny facade, Sarah felt trapped by her own demons. The urgency within him sparked alive. He had to reach out, to comfort, to connect. He imagined her sitting there alone, the weight of the world on her shoulders, and it ignited a flame of empathy in him. Days later, their paths crossed in a quiet corner of the school. They exchanged hesitant words that flowed easily, both of them seeking warmth in the chill of their struggles. Tom poured out his heart about his life as a janitor, his days filled with tireless work yet always shadowed by worry. Sarah opened up about the pressures of teaching, the anxiety that clawed at her from unresolved childhood scars. Together, they spun a narrative of resilience, threading their stories side by side, but as their bond deepened, the shadows of Sarah's mental health challenges loomed larger. Tom felt the stakes escalate. Just when he thought he could help, he realized that standing by Sarah might cost him everything. The school board, oblivious and indifferent, favored deadlines over mental wellness, and the fear of losing his job made him hesitate. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Tom stood at a crossroads, the air thick with tension. Should he step up for Sarah, knowing that doing so could jeopardize everything he had left for Lily? The conflict ate at him. Maybe a janitor couldn't create change, but what if he could show Sarah she wasn't alone? As hearts raced with uncertainty, Tom's choice lingered like a storm about to break. Would he fight for someone whose hope had become his own? Would he find the courage to challenge a system that had long since forgotten him? The questions bled into the night, leaving hearts racing and futures defined by one brave decision. The sun hung low over the schoolyard the next day, casting long shadows on the freshly cut grass. Tom felt its warmth on his back as he pushed his cart, each squeaking wheel echoing in the quietness that enveloped him. He was lost in thought, his heart heavy with the decision looming over him. Should he risk everything for Sarah? Just then, he spotted her in the staff lounge, her hair tied back in a messy bun, brows furrowed as she graded papers. She looked up, and their eyes locked. Something in her gaze drew him close, a silent understanding pulsing between them. The world around them blurred, leaving only the urgency of the moment hanging in the air. "Hey, Sarah," he said, his voice slightly shaky. "Tom." "Hi." She smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. It was a smile that spoke of fatigue and buried worries, a flicker of light hiding in the dark. He took a breath, grounding himself. "Can we talk? Just for a minute?" Her expression shifted to concern. "Is everything okay?" "More than okay," he replied, pressing through the fear that twisted in his gut. "I found something." Tom took a step forward, heart racing. "A note. From you." You wrote it in class. Her face paled, and uncertainty danced in her brown eyes. Oh, that I didn't want anyone to see. I think it's important, he said gently, his tone inviting trust. You're not alone in this. I see you struggling, and I think maybe we can help each other. The silence that followed felt heavy, like the air before a storm. Sarah's face softened, vulnerability leaking through her defenses. Tom, I've been trying to keep it together. But teaching, it's hard. Some days, I feel like I'm drowning. I get it, he said, anger boiling at the thought of her fighting alone in the chaos. But you don't have to fight in silence. I know how it feels to carry a burden that seems too heavy to bear. We can change things, you know. Maybe even push back against the school board. You don't have to do this alone. Her eyes searched his, and he could see the flicker of hope struggling to ignite. You'd really stand with me? You don't know the risk. Risk? He challenged, stealing his resolve. What's the risk of doing nothing? You help kids every day. You deserve help too. Sarah exhaled slowly, her breath trembling. I don't want to drag you into this. He stepped closer, the fear ebbing away, leaving behind only conviction. You won't drag me anywhere. You'll pull me along into something real. I care about you, Sarah. The way the kids light up when you teach. You matter. A moment hung between them, charged and fragile. Sarah looked down, hand trembling as her fingers toyed with a pen. If I do this, if I reach out, it might blow everything up. So be it. He declared, his voice stronger now. We might just build something better together. Your heart is too bright to stay hidden forever. Before she could answer, the bell rang, jolting them back to reality. She turned, her mind racing. But Tom's words hung in the air like the last note of a song. I'll think about it, she finally whispered as she hurried towards her classroom, leaving Tom standing alone, hope flickering where uncertainty once hovered. He felt a swell of purpose growing inside him. No longer just a janitor, he was a tether for someone who needed it. As he pushed his cart down the hallway, he knew that if they were going to take the leap, they needed a plan, and that would mean facing the very people who could silence them. Tom's heart raced with both fear and anticipation. What if he found the strength to fight, not just for Sarah, but for every person who felt invisible in the system? But little did he know, stakes were about to rise higher than he had ever imagined. Over the next few days, he would discover truths that could change everything, shattering the fragile foundation they built together. Would he be able to handle the storm that awaited them? The clock ticked down to their next encounter, the test of their bravery just around the corner. Tom couldn't shake off the flutter in his chest as he returned to his routine. Each corner he rounded, every faint whispering voice in the empty halls seemed amplified, adding to his growing anxiety. The school was more than just a place for lessons. It was a battleground where dreams collided with harsh realities. Days passed, and he watched Sarah through the gloomy windows of the staff lounge. Her smile, once bright and vibrant, now looked like a mask she forced on daily. There were moments when she would meet his gaze across the room, and in those fleeting seconds, they shared unspoken challenges. He often wondered if she could see the determination behind his timid exterior. After school, Tom stayed late, meticulously cleaning as his wheels hummed along the tiled floors. He was restless, needing to focus not just on the job but on the struggle they were about to face together. As he wiped down the classroom desks, he could picture her sitting there, surrounded by eager faces, pouring her heart into every lesson. Each day extinguished a bit of her spirit, and it lit a fire inside him to help rekindle it. He wanted to reignite that passion. Later that week, they found a moment amidst the chaos. Can we talk? Tom asked, hovering in the doorway of the staff lounge, heart racing. The room was empty except for them. Sarah looked up, the weight of her decision etched across her face. I've been thinking about what you said, she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. But I'm afraid. Fear is natural, but we can't let it stop us, he replied, his voice steady. You want to make changes for the kids, right? For yourself? She nodded silently, uncertainty clouding her expression. The board, they don't see how hard you work. They don't see your struggle, he pressed, trying to weave a thread of courage through her doubts. But we can show them. Together. Tom, what if this jeopardizes everything? My job. My future. Her hands fidgeted, twisting the fabric of her shirt, revealing a nervous energy that he stepped closer, his heart pounding as he reached her side. What's the alternative? Watching you burn out while you give everything you've got to a system that doesn't take care. The silence that followed crackled with tension. This wasn't just about her, it was about countless others who felt lost in the confines of the system. I can't let your fight be in vain, he added, the weight of his words heavy. Let's aim for something bigger than ourselves. Slowly, she looked up, and he saw a glimmer of the spark that drew him to her in the first place. Okay. I'm in, Sarah breathed, a mix of relief and fear washing over her. But we need a strategy. And with that, they huddled at a table, brainstorming and plotting their moves like rebels ready to take on a regime. The atmosphere shifted from dread to determination, and Tom could feel her hope igniting alongside his own. They discussed everything from gathering stories from fellow faculty to documenting the issues they faced. Every silent struggle became a key to unlocking change. But just as their plans took shape, a shadow loomed over them. Mr. Davidson, the school principal, walked in unexpectedly. His presence sent a chill down Tom's spine. Heavy words were often spoken behind closed doors with him, and the fact that he was here, lingering just moments after they were gaining momentum, felt ominous. Everything okay in here? His tone was sharp, his gaze fixed on Sarah, dissecting her as if she were a puzzle needing solving. Tom's pulse quickened. They had to be cautious. His plans were taking a trail, but he sensed a storm brewing. It was a race against time now. Would they have the courage to follow through, despite the threats that might be lurking? What would happen if their ambitions were discovered? Would they be silenced before they even began? Tom's heart raced as Mr. Davidson's eyes narrowed. The real battle was only just beginning. Everything okay in here? Mr. Davidson's voice sliced into the air, and Tom felt the tension coiling in his stomach. The principal's piercing gaze was unsettling, a hawk sizing up a mouse. Just organizing some materials for the students, Sarah replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Tom admired her composure, though he could see the small tremor in her hands as they rested on the table. Is that so? Davidson stepped closer, his presence looming. I hope you're not discussing anything out of line. The way he said it left an unsettling air, as if he already suspected their intent. No. We're just brainstorming ideas, Tom interjected, forcing a nonchalant smile that felt more like a grimace. You know how it is, getting ready for the big push at the end of the year. Well, make sure you do that within the guidelines, he said, his eyes narrowing slightly. Then, as if he could sense the charge in the air, he lingered a moment longer before walking out, leaving them in a cloud of unspoken words and rising anxiety. The moment he was gone, Sarah slumped back in her chair, exhaling sharply. This is going to be harder than I thought, she admitted, rubbing her forehead. He's always watching. Then we watch back, Tom said with renewed determination. It's our plan, and it's worth fighting for. Sarah looked at him, a mix of fear and resolve in her eyes. I guess we need to take even more precautions. No more open discussions like this until we're ready to move. Agreed, he said, his pulse still thundering but filling with purpose. They spent the next hour crafting messages, anonymous emails to teachers, surveys, gathering anecdotes from students who felt the pressure under the current system. With each step, they felt a spark of power building, inching toward something they had barely dared to hope for. But that night, as Tom locked up the school and stepped into the chill of the evening air, doubt gnawed at the edges of his burgeoning optimism. He thought about Sarah, her passion, her dedication, and how they might be putting her career on the line. What if they failed? What if this bold leap broke her spirit instead of mending it? He shook his head, pushing the fear aside. Hope was their only armor. As he strolled toward his car, he noticed a flicker of movement at the edge of the school grounds. A figure stood beneath a flickering street lamp, the hood pulled tight around their face. "Hey!" Tom called out, instinctively moving toward the shadow. "What are you doing out here?" The figure shifted, revealing themselves as one of the science teachers, Mr. Jennings. "I saw you two in there," he rasped, eyes darting nervously. "Talking about changes. Be careful. Davidson has ears everywhere." "Yeah, we know," Tom responded, tension rising in his chest. "But we're pushing for something better, for the kids. It's important." Mr. Jennings nodded, stepping closer, his voice lowering. "I get it. But the board is unforgiving. If they catch wind of this," he trailed off, the words hanging ominously between them. Tom felt the weight of the warning. Their battle was far from simple. "Then we stay quiet, we protect what we've started," he said, the feeling of urgency intensifying. "We'll get this done no matter what it takes." As the street lamp flickered and the darkness closed in, Tom realized they were not alone in this struggle. Others felt the same way, and strength was starting to build within his community, however subtle. But just as his fear waned, he felt a weight of something deeper. What if bringing everyone together risked even more? What would they all lose? The questions spiraled in his mind as he walked to his car. That night, as he lay awake, he wrestled with the shadows of doubt creeping in. What if they set this will in motion and it rolled away from them? What if the fight for change took something precious from Sarah? The battle had started, but it would take more than courage to win. Many forces lay hidden in the dark, and Tom knew he had to rally unspoken support soon or risk losing everything. With dawn around the corner, a spark of determination ignited in him once more. They were ready for the next step. But at what cost? The first rays of sunlight crept through Tom's window, scattering light across the room. He hadn't slept well, the weight of what lay ahead pressing heavily on his chest. Dragging himself out of bed, he prepared for the day, the soft hum of the coffee maker his only companion. As he sipped his morning brew, thoughts of their plans filled his mind, flickering with the same intensity as the flame igniting his hope. Today would be about action, starting small but significant. He planned to rally support among the teachers while keeping their conversations hidden from the prying ears of Mr. Davidson. The idea felt daunting, but somehow, the fire within him felt brighter. When he arrived at school, the familiar creak of the doors and the sweet aroma of the cafeteria lunch wafted through the halls. He noticed Sarah in the staff room, her face lit with enthusiasm as she updated a bulletin board. She looked up and caught his eye, giving him a smile that warmed him like the sun cutting through the morning fog. "Hey! Ready for today?" she called, her excitement palpable. "I am. But we need to keep it low-key," Tom replied, his heart racing. "What do you think about starting with the history department? They've been grumbling about Davidson for a while." Sarah frowned slightly. "Yeah, but they be nervous. If Davidson finds out exactly. That's why we need to tread lightly. Just some casual talks, see how they feel. Maybe they have ideas we haven't thought of yet." They approached the history teachers, leaning against the doorframe of their classroom. Tom led the initial conversation, careful to keep his tone light, sharing a joke about the endless curriculum. Slowly, the teachers began to open up. Their laughter masked the underlying tension, but Tom could feel it simmering beneath the surface. "Honestly, things are tough right now," Mrs. Walker sighed, running a hand through her hair. "The pressure from above, it feels impossible to keep the students engaged when we're treated like numbers." The conversation snowballed from there, teachers nodding in agreement, sharing ideas and frustrations. The unguarded emotions spilled out like water from a burst dam. Tom felt invigorated, a sense of purpose washing over him with every shared thought. But as the final bell rang, signaling the end of the day, that warmth was quickly overshadowed by a gnawing sense of dread. The teachers had become invigorated by their discussions, but they were still vulnerable. Tom couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that Davidson might already be aware of their efforts. Later, as he packed his things, Sarah leaned against the door, her eyes searching his face. "You think we did any good?" she asked softly, her vulnerability on display. "I hope so," he replied, an echo of doubt clouding his voice. "But it's dangerous. I worry about what could happen. What if Davidson retaliates? What if we end up risking everything we have?" Sarah took a step closer, her resolve shining through her uncertainty. "We can't turn back now. The kids, they rely on us. We need to keep going, even if it's scary." "Yeah, you're right," Tom said, feeling a simmering determination boiling beneath. "But we need to dig deeper and figure out our next move. We can't just build a rebellion. We need a revolution." As they exchanged determined looks, the weight of their mission set firmly on their shoulders. Outside, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that enveloped the school. And yet, in the pitch of concern creeping in, he couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching. What if it wasn't just Davidson? What if there were others who reveled in the disruption? Bracing himself, Tom glanced around the parking lot, suddenly aware of a presence lurking in the corner. He turned quickly, but it was gone. The doubt twisted in him again. Was this fight worth the turmoil it might bring? Little did he know, the shadows concealed more than just fear. They held secrets that could alter everything. The next morning found Tom awake earlier than usual, his mind racing with possibilities for the day. As he brewed a fresh pot of coffee, he couldn't shake the feeling of unease from the night before. Shadows danced in the corners of his thoughts, whispering of dangers lurking just out of sight. He shook it off, telling himself it was just paranoia. Still, he found himself glancing out the window every so often, seeking reassurance that nothing was amiss at school. The air felt different. The excited buzz from the previous day had shifted into an anxious hum. Tom walked through the hallways, passing students who seemed to sense the tension. Their laughter felt distant, as if they were separated by an invisible barrier. He spotted Sarah waiting by her classroom, her brow furrowed. "Did you hear?" she asked, her voice low. "Some of the teachers are being called into Davidson's office today. I'm worried it might be about us." Tom's stomach sank. "We can't let fear take us down. We have to keep pushing forward, Sarah. We've ignited a spark. We just need to make sure it doesn't fizzle out." They both walked into the history wing, deciding to meet with a few teachers who had opened up the day before. Mrs. Walker was at her desk, her expression a mixture of worry and determination. She looked up, and as Tom and Sarah approached, her gaze darkened. "I don't know if we should talk like we did," she said cautiously. "I heard Davidson is on a warpath. He doesn't like dissent, especially from us old-timers." Tom raised an eyebrow, feeling his heart race. "He's not going to silence us. If anything, we need to talk to more teachers, make it clear we're not alone in this." Mrs. Walker looked hesitant, but she nodded. "Okay. But we need something solid to stand on. A plan." "You're right," Tom said, invigorated. "What if we collect our grievances, write them down, and organize a meeting? We could push for a rally. If enough of us come together, it might force Davidson's hand." Sarah's eyes sparkled with hope. "Yes. We need more voices. We have to remind everyone they're not isolated. It's all of us against the system." As they spoke, though, a chill cascaded through the room. It began as a quiet rustle, and then escalated into whispers echoing throughout the hall. It wasn't just nervous chatter, it felt like something much darker. Tom's gaze shifted to the door, where Mr. Davidson stood, arms crossed, flanked by two other administrators. The principal's eyes locked onto Tom's, piercing and cold. "Good morning, everyone," he said, voice dripping with mock cheerfulness. "I hope you're all ready for some important discussions today." Panic flared in Tom's chest. They hadn't just been overheard. They were being hunted. Davidson swept into the room, the shadow of authority looming over them. Let us talk about the rumors swirling around the staff. I'd hate for anyone to get the wrong idea about their jobs, and where their loyalties lie. Just as Tom felt the weight of impending dread, Sarah stepped forward, voice steady despite her racing heart. We're just trying to improve our school for the kids, Mr. Davidson. You can't silence that. His grin didn't reach his eyes. You should remember that your positions come with responsibilities. I expect everyone to understand the importance of keeping harmony. With those words hanging in the air, the door slammed shut behind him, leaving Tom and Sarah in stunned silence. The stakes had risen dramatically. Now, it was clear they weren't just fighting for a better environment, they were fighting for their livelihoods. Tom glanced at Sarah. We need to regroup. This isn't just about us anymore. We're rallying against a complete power play. As they rushed out of the classroom to find allies, the reality sank in. This was no longer just discussion, it was war, but what Tom didn't realize was that deep within the shadows, alliances were forming that could change everything they thought they knew about their school and about themselves. The hallway felt colder as Tom and Sarah stepped back into the thrumming chaos of school life. Students moved in clusters, their eyes darting nervously from one another. Tom could sense the tension thick in the air, like a storm brewing just beyond the horizon. It wasn't just rumors anymore, it was a palpable fear that hung over everyone. Where do we start? Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Tom glanced around, spotting a few familiar faces, some professors who had shown a glimmer of support before. Let's find Mrs. Walker again, and see who else we can get on board, he decided, trying to pump as much confidence into his words as he could muster. As they made their way through the crowd, he took a deep breath, trying to steady the racing in his heart. He wanted to be a leader, someone who could inspire others, but he felt the weight of doubt creeping in. What if this blew up in their faces? What if Davidson silenced them before they could even gather a few allies? Finding Mrs. Walker wasn't hard. She was standing near her classroom, speaking discreetly with Mr. Thompson, another veteran teacher known for his kindness. As Tom and Sarah approached, he noticed the worried frown etched on both their faces. Tom, Sarah, you heard from Davidson, right? Mr. Thompson said, looking steely yet concerned. Yeah, Tom replied. We need to act. We're gathering grievances and planning a meeting. If we could get all the teachers in support, maybe we can make a difference. Mrs. Walker nodded, determination in her eyes. We need to show them they can't just intimidate us. But we need a safe place to meet, somewhere Davidson can't intercept us. After school, the teacher's lounge might work. It's quiet then, Mr. Thompson suggested. Agreed, Sarah chimed in. Let us spread the word discreetly. We need as many voices as possible to push back. We can build momentum. The three of them split up to gather support, moving quickly through the building. Tom's heart raced as he knocked on doors and whispered messages. He could see a flicker of hope in faces that had been clouded by fear just minutes ago. Teachers were tired of being pawns in Davidson's games. As the final bell rang, they gathered in the teacher's lounge, forming a circle. Tom looked around at the anxious yet determined faces. Some were scared, but others were full of resolve. They shared their grievances, recounting their experiences under Davidson's regime, the pressure, the silence, the fear of losing their jobs. It felt liberating to let it out, to unify their voices. Are we ready to take a stand? Tom asked, his heart pounding as he scanned the room. There were nods, whispers of agreement. He felt the strength in numbers, the electricity of camaraderie sparking around them, but just as conversations began to gain momentum, the door swung open with a crash. Davidson's silhouette filled the doorway, dark and formidable. The room fell silent, the sense of impending danger returning like a wave crashing onto the shore. Quite the gathering you have here, he said, his voice smooth as silk, yet sharp as daggers. I have to remind you, this isn't a democracy. I can't have you spreading dissent. Tom's breath caught in his throat. The battle was about to become much more personal than he ever anticipated. With the air thickening with tension, it dawned on Tom that they weren't just fighting for their jobs anymore. They were fighting for their voices, their truths, and their very freedom. As Davidson stepped further into the room, his eyes scanning the crowd, Tom couldn't shake the chilling feeling that the worst was yet to come. What if their unity triggered something darker? His mind raced, heart pounding in his chest. They had gathered support, but what would it lead to? Would they be prepared for the fallout? The moment was ripe with uncertainty, and somewhere deep down, Tom knew they were entering uncharted territory. Would their fight spark change, or would it ignite a fire that consumed everything they had built? Tom's heart thundered as Davidson's icy gaze swept the room, a predator assessing his prey. Silence fell like a thick fog, everyone holding their breath, their resolve balanced on a knife's edge. He could feel the collective weight of fear pressing down, suffocating the courage that had just sparked among them moments before. "Now, I believe you're all aware of the rules," Davidson continued, his tone like steel. "Threatening my authority is a serious offense. I suggest you forget this little get-together and return to your normal duties." Tom's mind raced. He felt the urge to shrink back, but something deep within him ignited. He was done being quiet. "No," he said boldly, the word bursting from him without thought. The room gasped softly, all eyes shifting back to him, a mixture of fear and admiration in their stares. "What did you just say?" Davidson asked, raising an eyebrow in mock disbelief. Tom swallowed hard, feeling sweat trickle down his back. "I said no. We can't go back to pretending everything is fine when it's not. We have a right to speak up." The tension in the room crackled, a mix of dread and admiration swirling in the air. Davidson stepped closer, his shadow looming over Tom. "You will regret this, Tom. I can promise you that." Each word felt like a chained promise, tightening around Tom's throat. But he held his ground, feeding off the quiet strength of his colleagues. There was a flicker of encouragement in Mrs. Walker's eyes and a hint of solidarity from Mr. Thompson. "Respect is earned, not demanded, Davidson," Mrs. Walker spoke up, her voice steady. "We are tired of living in fear, and you will not silence us anymore." Tom's courage surged as he saw others nodding, their resolve strengthening like roots gripping the earth. The atmosphere shifted, slowly transforming from fear into defiance. They weren't just teachers in this room, they were a unified front fighting for their shared dignity. "I will report you all," Davidson warned, his voice low and dangerous. "Go ahead," Tom replied, his heart racing as he glanced around the room. "We'll stand by our complaints. You can't intimidate us forever." Silence settled again, heavy yet hopeful. It felt empowering to stand together against the prison of fear Davidson had tried to create. Tom took a deep breath, allowing the rush of solidarity to flood through him. They were finally taking their lives back. Davidson's expression darkened, revealing a simmering fury beneath his polished exterior. "You think this is a game? You'll soon find out how wrong you are." He turned on his heel, the door slamming shut behind him, the echo ricocheting through the lounge with a finality that hung in the air. As the silence began to lift, a palpable sense of relief washed over the teachers. They exchanged glances, smiles creeping onto faces that moments ago had been shrouded in fear. "Did we just?" Sarah whispered, eyes wide with disbelief. Tom nodded slowly, feeling a mix of adrenaline and fear. "We did," he breathed. "We took a stand." They began to murmur among themselves, grateful looks exchanged. It was a tiny victory, but a victory nonetheless. Something had shifted. They were no longer alone in this battle. Yet beneath the surface of their growing confidence loomed the unshakable tension of Davidson's threat. How far would he go to maintain his grip? And would their newfound unity withstand the challenge that lay ahead? A knot formed in Tom's stomach at the thought. As the reality of what they had just done settled in, a chilling realization crept in. While they might have taken one step forward, the road to lasting change would be fraught with danger. What's our next move? Someone finally asked, breaking the fragile silence. The question hung heavily in the air, and Tom knew they needed a plan. Because the battle was just beginning, and he was terrified of what it might cost them all. Would they be brave enough to see it through? The warmth of the room slowly began to seep away, replaced by uncertainty and fear as they considered what lay ahead. Tom looked at his colleagues, their expressions shifting from relief to concern. It felt like they had stepped into a battle, but now they needed to strategize their next move. "Let us not get ahead of ourselves," Ms. Avery suggested, her voice steady yet laced with apprehension. "We can't just march into the administration office demanding change. Davidson won't take that lightly." Tom nodded, tapping his fingers on the table, feeling the desperation creep into his resolve. "I understand that, but we can't go back to how things were. He needs to be held accountable. What if we document everything he has done?" Sarah interjected, her blue eyes shining with determination. "We can gather evidence for our complaints. If we can show how he has been treating us, it might strengthen our case." A collective sigh of relief echoed, as Tom felt the atmosphere shift back to a place of collaboration. "That could work," he said, feeling a bit more hopeful. "But we have to be careful. Davidson has eyes everywhere. We can't let him know we're organizing against him." Mr. Thompson, who had been quiet until now, cleared his throat. "We should meet after school. Just us. Maybe at my house. We can really put our heads together and figure this out." His suggestion was met with murmurs of agreement, and a small smile broke the tension as ideas began bouncing around the table. They brainstormed tactics, each person offering their unique insights while the shadow of Davidson loomed like a dark cloud in the back of their minds. Tom felt a rush of gratitude. They were a team now, united in something greater than individual fears. It filled him with purpose. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, they were ready to fight. The energy in the room transformed as they shared stories of their experiences, the humiliations they faced daily, reminding one another that they were not alone. Yet amidst their laughter and shared anger, worry simmered below the surface. The reality of their situation pressed in like a tightening vice. "What will happen if he retaliates?" Mrs. Walker asked, concern etched across her face. "What if he targets us individually?" A heavy silence fell, every eye darting to each other, understanding the risks they were undertaking. Tom felt his heart pounding. This was no longer just a fight for their rights, it was a fight for their livelihoods. "We know the risks," he said, finding his voice. "But if we don't stand up for ourselves, then what is the alternative? To keep living in fear? We owe it to ourselves to try. We deserve to work in a place where we feel valued." Their nods of agreement were hesitant but growing stronger, like a flame catching wind. The conversation flowed, ideas turning into a plan. They mapped out a timeline for gathering documents, emails, notes, anything that could lend credibility to their claims. Each commitment felt like a small stone laid in the foundation of their shared resistance. As the meeting closed, a weight lifted, a fire ignited. They exchanged warm hugs and supportive pats on backs, full of encouragement and courage they thought they'd lost, yet outside the school, the cold air bit at their resolve. Tom glanced back at the building, the lights flickering like distant stars, and he wondered what price would come for their bravery. As he walked to his car, a nagging feeling settled in his stomach. What would Davidson's next move be? The question lingered, heavy and throbbing, as they prepared for their first steps into uncharted territory, but before Tom could sink into the worries of the unknown, his phone buzzed, an urgent message from Sarah illuminating the screen. "Tom, meet me at the cafe. I have something serious to discuss. I think it might change everything." His heart raced. What could it be? Would it bring them closer to their goal, or would it add another layer of complication to an already precarious situation? Tom's thoughts raced as he pulled into the cafe parking lot. What did Sarah have to say? The weight of uncertainty hung heavily on him. He stepped inside, the smell of fresh coffee and pastries wrapping around him like a comforting blanket. But comfort felt distant when he spotted Sarah at a corner table. Her face was drawn, eyes shining with an intensity that caught him off guard. "Hey," he said, sliding into the seat across from her. "What is going on? You look tense." She took a deep breath, her hands fidgeting with the edge of the table. "I overheard something today in the teacher's lounge." Her voice was low, urgency lacing her words. "It's about Davidson." Tom leaned in closer, heart pounding. "What did you hear?" "He's planning to bring in an outside consultant to assess the faculty." Her eyes darted around, as if someone might overhear. "He's trying to get ahead of anything we might do. If he senses trouble, he could use this to discredit us. We need to act before they turn the narrative against us." A chill ran down Tom's spine. It was a strategic move, clever and malicious. So he plans to control the narrative? We can't let him do that. Sarah nodded. That's why we need to gather our evidence now. This is our chance. If we present a united front before they can twist the story, she trailed off, allowing the implication to hang in the air. Right, Tom said, his mind already spinning with possibilities. Let us double our efforts. If the consultant comes in, we want to be ready. Document everything, conversations, experiences, even the smallest grievances. She managed a small smile. I knew you'd understand. Together, we can create something undeniable. Their conversation sparked a fire inside Tom. They had a purpose, and for the first time, it felt like they were gaining control. He could feel a shift among the teachers. They were rallying together, reclaiming their identities beneath the heavy shadow of Davidson. They spent several hours strategizing, gathering stories from their colleagues, pooling together emails and testimonials to show the school board what was really happening. It wasn't just about them anymore, it was about the entire faculty, the very heart of education wrapped up in a system that had neglected them for too long. When they finally finished, Sarah paused, looking around at their makeshift war room filled with fervor and determination. I think we can present this at the next faculty meeting, she said, tone steady. We need to confront Davidson before that consultant arrives. Show the board our unity. Tom nodded, feeling a surge of hope. This was it. They were no longer ghosts in the hallways, no longer invisible. They were fighting back. As days passed, the atmosphere shifted. Each meeting brought more teachers into their fold. Anxiety turned into excitement as they shared their stories, their common pain fueling mutual support. But amidst the growing momentum, Davidson's cold presence loomed. Tom and Sarah knew they had crossed a line, perhaps irrevocably. The tension was palpable, and cracks in their resolve began to show, particularly as they detailed the grievance reports. One afternoon, Tom took a moment to clear his mind and reminisce about why he had started this journey in the first place. He thought of Lily, the joy she brought into his life, and envisioned what kind of future he wanted for her. In that instant, he found clarity. We can't back down. This is about hope, not just for us, but for every child who deserves a supportive environment. The night before the faculty meeting loomed, filled with restlessness. The teachers gathered, sensing the gravity of the moment. Tom could feel the pulse of energy in the room. This was it. They would stand for themselves, and as they united, they were stronger. The meeting fluttered to life as the board members arrived. Tom glanced at Sarah, her expression equal parts fear and determination. And as Davidson settled into his authoritative stance at the head of the table, Tom felt a rush of adrenaline surge through him. Let us do this, he whispered to Sarah as they prepared. One by one, teachers began to voice their concerns. Tom felt the nervous flutter giving way to something more: courage, clarity, resolve. They were offering a glimpse of their invisible suffering, sharing the weight of their collective burden. The room filled with testimonies that transformed from whispers to a powerful chorus of truths. Mr. Davidson has created an environment of fear and silence, Tom said, his voice steady as he met Davidson's icy gaze. But we will not be silent anymore. We will reclaim our voices. Desperation glinted in Davidson's eyes, anger simmering beneath the surface. Unwavering, Tom pressed on. We demand a fair evaluation of our work conditions. We are not just employees, we are educators who deserve respect and dignity. The ripple of support grew stronger, voices rising, the tension a boiling cauldron ready to spill over. Davidson, faced with undeniable solidarity, would have to respond. Tom didn't realize that this moment, this clash of wills, was the turning point. They had moved from fear into action, lighting a fire of change that could not be extinguished. The room vibrated with hope, rising like steam from a pot, threatening to boil over. As they concluded their statements, Sarah squeezed Tom's hand, a silent reminder of the battle they had fought together. At that moment, he understood. Hope ignited in the depths of their hearts, burning bright against the darkness of despair. No matter what came next, they would face it together, emboldened by the strength they found in each other. But as the meeting drew to a close, the tension shifted. Davidson rose, anger radiating from him. You think this will end well for you? He sneered. You are digging a grave for yourselves. In the depths of uncertainty, Tom held his head high, resolve ever stronger. They had taken the first step towards transforming their reality. They had seized their power. But would it be enough? A storm lay ahead, and they had no way of knowing what they might lose in the fight for fairness. Tom swallowed hard, facing Davidson's wrath with a courage he never knew he possessed. The battle had begun, but it was only the beginning. Outside the walls of the school, a brighter tomorrow shimmered. A tomorrow for Lily, for Sarah, and for all those who dared to dream of change. And deep down, Tom felt the shift profound. He had not only transformed Sarah's life, but perhaps his own, and the lives of countless others who had long endured the weight of silence. As he steeled himself for the battles to come, one truth fled into the light: this journey was shared, igniting a fire that could and would change everything. Now is the time. Don't wait not even one more second. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this emotional ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Your support means the world to us and the characters we've come to love.